animal, talking animal. It walks like an animal, talks like an animal, must be an animal. Come hear the animals, talking animals, talking animals.
Good morning. This is Talking Animals on WMNF. I'm Duncan Strauss. My guest on today's show is Joshua Lisbon, a researcher at the center of a new documentary called Willow, Diary of a Mountain Lion. Premiering tonight, October 29th, on the PBS series Nature, Willow presents significant revelatory information and never-seen-before footage yielded by a decade-long study of mountain lions in Montana. This unique research project involves more than 150 trail cameras arrayed across the Sapphire Mountains, a range located in southwestern Montana, and the persistent efforts of Lisbon and his colleagues. Recurring on-screen presence, Lisbon outlines early in the film the distinctive, non-intrusive nature of the study, explaining why they, quote, don't handle cats, don't collar cats, don't want to disturb them in any way, end quote. While other adjacent wildlife, including foxes, wolves, elks, bobcats, skunks, and more, reap some screen time, the focus of the flick is the titular Willow, an orphaned female mountain lion with a remarkable life. Thanks to the magnitude of footage produced by all those remote cameras, alongside research and genetic sampling, the film presents some unprecedented scenes and updates and breakthroughs of one kind or another. These include a mountain lion mom raising 6 kittens, unheard of, as it turns out, and risky as well. Resource sharing by unrelated individuals, in this case meaning multiple cats feasting cooperatively on prey, and a jarring kill of a bull elk far bigger than Willow herself. We'll discuss the film, the study, and, of course, Willow when I speak with Joshua Lisbon in just a moment here on Talking Animals on WMNF. Meanwhile, coming up later on today's program, I'll speak with Miriam Parham, the co-founder and president of Florida Voices for Animals, which produces the annual Tampa Bay Veg Fest, happening in a little over a week on Saturday, November 8th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Perry Harvey Senior Park. We'll ask Miriam to highlight some of the many exciting elements of this year's Tampa Bay Veg Fest, the 13th annual Veg Fest, by the way. We'll hear those details and more when Miriam joins us later in today's show. Right now, though, let's discuss mountain lions, Montana mountain lions, and the new documentary reflecting a decade-long study of the animal with primary researcher on this study, Joshua Lisbon. So with a reminder that I invite you to join the conversation by calling 813-239-9663, emailing DJ at WMNF.org, or texting 813-433-0885. Let's welcome Joshua Lisbon to Talking Animals on WMNF. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for joining us on Talking Animals. And congratulations on the film. I found it just fascinating and with just plenty of astounding footage, which we'll delve into more a little bit later on for sure.
Oh, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. It was a passion project for myself and the filmmaker, Colin Ruggiero, who I definitely need to give a ton of credit to.
For sure. Well, let's in the meantime, though, let's do start with sort of a brief Meet Joshua segment before we get into a discussion of the film and Willow, et cetera, and the study. So what's your background, Joshua?
Well, my background is actually in all the wrong things.
Okay. Quit your bragging there, Joshua.
Yeah. So I come to this from more of like an education background. So I would consider myself, a researcher, a pretty solid naturalist, and to, I guess, borrow some words from Robin Kimmerer, I love the idea of differentiating between learning about nature and learning from nature. And so going into this study, I've read everything conceivable about mountain lions, learned a lot about mountain lions, and then had the opportunity through years and years of following them in the field and filming them and observing them to learn from them directly about how they live in the world. So this study came to me. It was developed by Dr. Mike Sawaya, who came in, pioneered a lot of non-invasive research protocols in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. The organization I worked for, loved that, and so we brought him in. He set up this study and then exited a couple years out, and they handed the study to me, and I had a really steep learning curve. But as you see, we figured a lot of things out, and the film really highlights everything that we learned and discovered over the course of the decade-long study.
And are you a Montana native, Joshua?
No, unfortunately. I wish I moved here sooner. I've been in Montana for about 20 years now, and absolutely love it. I think I could spend several lifetimes here and not do everything I need to do.
And what specifically, talk about your background in education and being sort of having the wrong background for this project, which I find amusing. But what did you work on directly before the study that yielded the Willow documentary?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of wilderness work, designing wilderness programming for youth. The organization that this project was run through for years leading up to this study and during, I was their education director, so in charge of all public outreach and connection and developing education for, K through 12 populations, university students, all of that. So I was sort of the public interface between the conservation organization and the outside world. And we took a turn with that organization more towards storytelling. There was a big push for that somewhere along the way. And because of this mountain lion project, I started really realizing the richness of the story here with Willow.
Yeah.
And had an opportunity to speak to a filmmaker, and so it grew out of that relationship and took us ages to make. I, of course, was very naive, thinking like this will be easier than it would be, and it took us almost 4 years to film all of this and put it together. But yeah, my background, I have a master's degree from the University of Montana, and then an undergraduate degree from Temple University, and so all of that is really education focused. So that was the direction I was going with my life. I love sharing the natural world with people. I'm very passionate about trying to create that connection, foster that connection for people, help them to learn about how amazing the natural world is. And the mountain lion work really fell in my lap, and I was absolutely captivated by it and gave it my all for the last, probably about 15 years now, and then continuing to do that work.
Yeah, well, all kidding aside, I mean, really the idea of saying you kind of had the wrong background for this, I mean, the whole educational background that you do bring to it, to me, conforms exactly with what the documentary turned out to be, which is, nothing if not educational in all the best senses of that term.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was the hope. We really wanted to share with you the stories. So I think, characterizing myself as a researcher, certainly because I do research, as a naturalist because I feel comfortable with that, and as a storyteller and educator. Those are the areas that I feel most comfortable in. And as we learned more and more about this particular cat year by year by year, it was a winter study, so, you would sort of close the book on that project. I'd go off into doing other projects through the rest of the year, and we'd open that back up in the winter. And it was this amazing opportunity to check back in with these characters who become increasingly important. I just get, over the years, more and more and more invested in their lives and their story as I'm watching this play out. And one of the things that I think is important about the film, which is unique to this film, first, we're non-invasive. So we're collecting only hair and scat. We're not collaring cats. So when you see them on camera, they're not wearing collars, which I think is beautiful. It also makes, I think, for really good cinema, but it's really hard to find them.
Yeah.
If you have a collar, you can figure out where they are. So we have to find these cats. And a lot of stories about mountain lions are from the 30,000-foot view, the species level of, this is a mountain lions do this, they do that. And you can swap cats in and out to tell that story because they look very similar, and it's hard to tell if that is your character or what. And you kind of develop a story around that. But with this film, we are confirming with the genetics that when we show you an animal on screen and we say, this is this character, this is Willow or F2, which was her designation, or Sula, F9, when we show you those individuals, we've confirmed it is those individuals through the genetics, which made it even harder because we put those bumpers on it. So we had to be very mindful that when we're showing you those interactions, like Willow taking down an elk, like we know that is Willow. Willow raising those 6 kittens, we know that is Willow. And every time you see her on camera, it's her.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting, because one of the things I was going to ask later, but now it seems like as good a time as any to just sort of follow up on that exact point, is I was just wondering to what extent the research and the filming challenges that were posed by mountain lions looking very much alike, at least to a layman such as myself. I mean, it's not like with other cats there's spots or stripes or other things that would help identify one from another, but how... Is it strictly by genetic material, or how did you guys, or did you finally get to a point where you say, well, that's definitely Willow, just by the way she walked across the tundra or whatever it might be?
There's a few things that made it easy. When Willow has a family group, like we know her territory, so we know basically where she's at.
Yeah.
Within several thousand acres. So we can kind of locate her in there, and we're like, okay, if we have this cat in this area with this many kittens, we know it's probably her. So that makes it a little easier in the wintertime. And then we have different females, like Willow would have her 6, which makes that easy to identify. Sula would have 3, makes her easier to identify. When they don't have kittens, it's a lot harder. The females that shared territory in this study, we had Willow, Sula, and Oma, which were F2, F9, and F4. And for people out there, I know a lot of people kind of balk at giving cats or characters names in these stories, and they think it's sort of anthropomorphizing the animals, and some people don't love that.
Yeah.
But for telling the story, it makes it so much easier to follow the characters, because if they all have just F9, F2, F4, it would really get jumbled up. So we're trying to differentiate them. But seeing them, like Oma was like, she was a shorter cat. She was a little sway back. She was built broad. So she had a very distinct look. Willow was very tall, very narrow, very long-legged. She had a pretty distinct look.
Very, very, very willowy, I might add, I guess, which is kind of, I think you mentioned in the film how that ended up being her name.
Yeah, exactly. And then Sula we got a lot of shots of her face, and her eyes were just kind of like tipped up a little bit on the outside corners. And so her face shape, when you look at hours and hours and hours of footage, you start to just recognize. And these subtle differences start to stand out. And that's not to say we couldn't be wrong. Like, there were times that we definitely were like, well, we're not sure, we need to confirm with the genetics, and we would anyway. But when you stare at them long enough, you start to get pretty good at figuring out who's who.
Yeah.
That said, it is very challenging. Mountain lions do look very similar.
Yeah, so back to, sorry to jump around a little bit here, but
yeah.
What you were saying at the time when we talked about distinguishing one cat from another, we were talking about the sort of non-invasive nature of the study, which I thought was really interesting, notable trait, and I mentioned, of course, in the opening, just the show a moment ago. So, how was that format or approach decided on, and by whom?
I think originally it came out of the organization that I was working for, wanting to be as non-invasive as possible in their studies. And that was just sort of an early decision in like ground floor level of that organization as we were getting going.
So does that mean any kind of study they would do, that would just tend to be their approach, or is that more specific to this study?
It was originally the overall approach, but that changed over time. And we were given opportunities further down the line with, we were running bear studies, elk studies, mule deer studies, white-tailed deer studies, various things where coyote studies, where collars were coming in. And so we were offered the opportunity to collar bears, to collar elk, to do things like that. And the organization went for it. And there's good reason to do that in scientific research. You get amazing data. It's more defensible in a lot of ways. You learn a lot of things that you just cannot fully learn through non-invasive. But when I was offered that opportunity through Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks here to proceed with collaring, I opted not to. because I liked the non-invasive quality. I liked that it set us aside. It made it unique. And I really, personally, I like the idea of respecting the sovereignty of those animals.
Yeah.
And because I was in a position to make that decision, I opted to make the decision to not collar, because I just didn't want to be responsible for that additional stress on them. And I was able to make that call and respected in that decision. So
that's great.
We stayed non-invasive.
So it not only involves less stress for the cats, but in some ways, is the results yielded this way more pure in a sense?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm biased. I like it. I think it's definitely slower. So if you're running a normal research project, you have a briefer window of time, and if you put collars on cats, you know where they are. You can find dens. You can get home ranges. You can find kill sites more easily. You can know when cats are interacting at kill sites. It makes extracting a lot of that information so much easier and very, very defensible because you have the GPS data on the collars. So it's a fantastic research tool. For us, we had to put in so many extra miles on the ground, hiking. It required a pretty significant labor lift. So you need people who are very passionate about long hikes in the woods because we're going up and down all these mountains all the time. And then you have to find the kill sites and set up the cameras. And you collect all of your genetics from that site. You get a lot of scat, you get a lot of hair. And then you send that off to the genomics lab on the UM campus here at Rocky Mountain Research Station. And that team does an amazing job, but there's a delay. So, it takes a while to process all of that, and I get that data back. So unless we know this is this family group based on kittens and whatever, often you're not entirely certain which individuals you have. And so the resource sharing was slow to evolve because we know we have multiple individuals. We are filming and witnessing these interactions at kill sites. And then as the genetics come back to us, we are figuring out, this is what's taking place in these interactions. And we can confirm that it's unrelated individuals sharing these kill sites, and we're documenting that. So it's just different, but it's slower.
Yeah.
So you require a pretty long, you need more years to do it because it takes a while. You get all your individuals, you're like, okay, we have cats. You resample the next year, and then you start figuring out who lives there and who's related and what the family groups look like and who has territories. And it just takes a while for that to tease out.
And also, Josh, I may have this wrong, but I'm sort of vaguely recalling in the film one of your colleagues talking about, sort of at least indirectly, about the cats not having collars, but about how you guys as researchers had, a way to sort of cast a net, like a GPS-related kind of, as I recall.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So while the cats aren't collared, in a way, the human researchers were sort of the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah, that's very true. So we're running around with GPS units tracking ourselves. So as soon as you get in the field, you turn that on, you track yourself, you track your whole day. And we had a system for putting in waypoints for kill sites, bed sites, hair, scat, all of that. So we could collect all of that data. It would all be georeferenced. And we would, when we found a track, drop a waypoint. When we would lose a track or our day would end, we'd put another waypoint in, which could become crazy confusing because sometimes you're like on track, you lose a track, you find another. You've got all these little segments that you're making. And when you come back to the office at the end of the day, you have to compile that data and create the maps from it to pull those segments out so that you can differentiate what is you walking in the woods and what is you following a mountain lion track in the woods. And then we can pull those segments out and get a sense of how mountain lions are using the landscape. And that helps us then to tie which individuals we were getting genetic samples from to how they're using the land and what their territories are.
Got it. All right, for people who might have just tuned in a bit late, let me identify you. This is Talking Animals on WNF. I'm Duncan Strauss. If you did just tune in, my guest is Joshua Lisbon, a researcher/educator and wearer of other hats as well, at the center of a new documentary, Willow, Diary of a Mountain Lion, which premieres tonight. That's October 29th, tonight on the PBS series Nature. Willow presents revelatory information and never before seen footage collected from more than 150 trail cameras. And that's sort of the product itself of a decade-long study of mountain lions in Montana. If you'd like to ask Joshua a question or offer a comment about mountain lions or the doc, please call 813-239-9663, email dj@wmnf.org, or text 813-433-0885. So at this point, Joshua, do you consider the study complete?
Yes. So that study is done. It wrapped up in, I guess, because we span years, so it's like you'd start in like 2023 and then bleed over into 2024, and so our study seasons always spanned a couple of calendar years there. So that study ended in spring or late winter 2024, and so that was the last of that.
And then will the results of the study be published in a journal, or in this case, is the film essentially the journal?
The film is essentially the journal on this one. I produced some internal reports, but along the way, because of the study was initially set up on a piece of property, and we broke it into zones, and we were going to circulate those zones regularly to be sure that our effort was equally distributed. But the property and the organization that I worked for were dynamic, and so the search area would grow and change, and so it was challenging to be consistent with search effort in various areas, which made publishing certain things a little difficult out of that study. So the main deliverable on this is this film.
Okay. Well, let's talk then really more about the film. And I always find this a bit tricky when it's a film most people haven't yet seen, but they can see it as soon as tonight. So I try to be extremely careful about spoilers and sort of talk around certain things and just not even get into other things at all. So we probably can't avoid all spoilers, but we can try to avoid most of them. So just more broadly, just tell me about Willow. Just tell me, anything like people out there who haven't seen the film, and I'm curious about Willow myself.
Yeah, I think Willow, she started her life like any other mountain lion. She had some advantages in the lottery of birth and then some disadvantages. And so she was born to a mother, F1, who was lived in the Sapphire Mountains, had really good hunting range, really good winter food resources, and in an area that saw some hunting adjacent. And so her mother's range would stray into areas that saw a fair amount of winter hunting of mountain lions. And so she had areas of refuge and areas where, there was more pressure on her. And she makes it to about dispersal age, which is on average 15 months for mountain lions, can be a little shorter, can be a little longer. Some things you read say 18 to 24. It varies a little bit. But right about where she's at a point where she could strike out and survive on her own, both her mother and her sibling, so she had one sibling, were harvested by hunters, a couple of days apart in the same winter, kind of 2014-ish. And so suddenly she's on her own. So the dynamics of her life change enormously. And so she is a solitary juvenile cat now, still sort of learning what it is to be a mountain lion and how to be, how to hunt successfully and all of that. The advantage she has is she has a really good home range. And so she stays in what was her mother's home range, and she is tolerated by an unrelated individual, Oma, who's F4, who is older, more established. And there's nothing that says Oma should tolerate her, because Oma does not tolerate this other cat that they have adjacent ranges. So I don't know how they decide whether they're friends or not, but she decides to tolerate Willow in her home range. And we start seeing signs of resource sharing early on before we're getting good imagery of it. We're seeing them all we're getting samples of them, like scat and hare, from the same kill sites. And we're like, oh, well, we're not sure if they're all there at the same time or one sneaking in later or how this is working. But this light bulb starts going off. In 2017, Mark Elbrock, who is he works for Panthera. He's ran the Teton Cougar Project and now one in the Olympic Peninsula. He's probably like the world leading expert on mountain lions. He publishes a paper that blows the doors off of resource sharing and shows for the first time that this happens with unrelated individuals.
Joshua, sorry to interrupt, but can you just explain? I learned myself just through the film, but for those who may not be familiar with what resource sharing means in this case, could you kind of just give us a bit of a definition?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're sharing kill sites, essentially. It's showing social tolerance and reciprocal relationships. So
yeah, but basically people are feasting on the same prey, I guess, and primarily is what this means in this case, I guess.
Exactly. So one mountain lion kills a deer or an elk and tolerates and shares that food with another mountain lion that they're not related to. And so up until that was published by Mark, largely this was not accepted as being something that mountain lions did. And so we started seeing it and we were wondering, and then he publishes on it and we're like, okay, this is what we're seeing. And then eventually we're able to film it, which you will see in the film. But so Willow's sharing these food resources with this other individual. She makes it to adulthood. She starts having her own kittens and we start introducing these new characters. So you meet F9, Sula, you meet, we call them the teens. She had a litter of 4. And normally mountain lions have kittens every couple of years because of how long it takes to raise them. And so Willow has kittens back to back 1 year. So now she has Sula, who's a juvenile dependent, and these new kittens, the teens. And so we have this mixed age group, which is also super uncommon. And to be able to film that is a rarity. And so we watch Willow raise this mixed age group. And then she goes on to later in the film, you'll see her raise a litter of 6, which is pretty unheard of, and I haven't seen it documented anywhere else. And I guess to give a little spoiler here, because we just kind of leave it as a question in the film, like, did she actually just have 6 kittens? And I've only found one source anywhere ever that says that's even biologically possible. But what we really think happened is that Willow adopted 4 kittens from an offspring of hers from, a couple seasons back, and they probably bred at the same time, had kittens at the same time, and that mother died. And because they were kind of in the same area and sharing zones and there was overlap, for whatever reason, Willow decides to adopt 4 additional kittens and raises them to adulthood, which is just a colossal act because the amount of hunting and effort required to pull that off is unbelievable. Most mountain lions have 1 to 4 kittens in any given litter, and of however many they may have, maybe 1, maybe 2 survive to dispersal age. And if you get a couple that make it to dispersal age and go off on their own, to make it to maybe 3 years old, maybe 1 of them does, maybe none of them do. So to get 6 successfully raised and dispersed is just, it's a monumental act.
And Joshua, I guess this would be far from the scientific realm, but as you explain this, I guess if this was pointed out in the film, I might have missed it, that the theory that she adopted those 4. But I mean, kind of help wondering upon hearing that if in some way if that's related to her own experience of being orphaned and seeing a fellow cat or a sibling even, I guess maybe, or offspring who suddenly needed somebody to care for the 4 they were leaving behind, and she just stepped up and said, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. Like, I love to try to put myself in their heads and be like, what made you make this decision? Why did you choose to do this thing or that thing? We can definitely say that mountain lion mothers are extremely affectionate, and we show that in the film.
Yeah,
they raise their young, and they're really tolerant and really, really affectionate, and that's beautiful to see. We also know, again, based on Mark Elbrock's work, I like leaning on him because he's quite the expert, that if a mountain lion is exposed to the idea of resource sharing, they are many times more likely to then do that themselves. So I think it is safe to say that within what it is to be a mountain lion, they are the sum total of their individual experiences. And if you meet one mountain lion, there are traits within that mountain lion that will be the same as meeting another mountain lion. And there are things within that mountain lion that will be different. They may be more aggressive, less aggressive. They may be more tolerant, less tolerant. They are having their own experience of the world. And whatever Willow's experience of the world was, it brought that out in her. And she chose to take those kittens on and to raise them. So I like to try to connect the dots and think of the stories and the motivations. Ultimately, I don't know, but it is a remarkable feat.
Yeah, well, so how far into kind of looking around and you know, like the filming before Willow emerges the focus, like when did you guys first say, hey, this cat seems extraordinary in this way and kind of, by the way, in this way and this way as well. So maybe that's the focus of the study / film. Was there sort of any kind of gradual light bulb moments of those kinds? Or she just seems like in so many ways, as we later learned from the film and as we've talked about a little bit in this conversation, she was kind of singular in just all kinds of ways.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It was like a slowly evolving realization, because initially we're just figuring out which cats are residents, what is the population, how are they related, and then gradually, as we're following them year by year, we're able to film them with kittens, and we start seeing these unique behaviors. We start seeing resource sharing, and we start connecting all of these dots back to Willow. And so, she's doing this thing. Oh, we realize she was orphaned. What a kind of unique start to her story. Oh, she's tolerated by this other individual. Oh, she's doing resource sharing. Oh, she has a mixed age family. And this stuff really starts compiling. And by the time Colin and I sat down and started talking about this story and being like, hey, we have this study going and we have this cat and we are seeing this. And I think it's pretty amazing. And Colin was like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. That sounds like a really cool story. Let's see what we can do with that. So it took us several years into the study to be able to see her individual life expressed sufficiently to even know how amazing her story was. And it's true. It's like we were able to shine a light on her, and she did all of these things that seem so remarkable. And what it makes me wonder is how much of this is Willow, right? Yeah, what an amazing cat. Clearly a good mother, clearly quite the hunter that she could feed so many kittens.
Yeah.
But also, like, how unique is it? Like, is what we're seeing unique because we just haven't been able to shine a light on that in other wild populations? Or is this something that maybe pieces of this happen more frequently and we just don't see it because mountain lions are so challenging to study and observe because they are so elusive and they are so secretive. And so we like fill in the blank spots of our understanding with our own assumptions. And often I think we like assume less. We like, to borrow from Robin Kimmerer, every time you look at the natural world, we don't find it to be less intelligent or less, amazing, or like every time you look, it's more. It's always more intelligent, more amazing, and we're surprised by that. And I don't think we should be. So my hope is that as technologies evolve, as we can continue to study mountain lions, and I am continuing to with a new study to try to look in a different area at different populations to see what of these story threads are present in those populations. And my hope is that we just learn more and more about them as we're able to study them.
Yeah, it sounds like a super intriguing question that, at the moment probably close to impossible to answer until you're maybe able to do, this next study you just mentioned or whatever. But it's like, is Willow truly extraordinary, or if we got a chance to study more mountain lions in the way we were able to study Willow, would we find there's more similarities than we would have guessed between her and other mountain lions?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, and that's what I'd like to know.
For sure.
And I think I'm hopeful that I can shine more of light on this as I continue this work.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, obviously a big part of what makes the film so magical is the often, pretty astounding, dazzling footage with remarkable access and proximity, not just to Willow, but various other animals, foxes, bears, etc. All the product of a bunch of cameras. And it seems like as if someone said, if 5 cameras are good, 50 are better, maybe 150 cameras are even better than that. So tell me about the sort of planning and installation and the decision about how many cameras to actually have in the making of this film.
Yeah, so that existed on multiple levels. The organization that I worked for placed cameras very strategically across the landscape and maintained like a full-time camera network. There were cameras that would trigger remotely and then and send that information to us. And then there were cameras that we used a lot of Browning trail cameras. I love those guys. And we would place those out in the landscape, and we have to go pull the cards and curate all of that. And so there was a network of that just existed all the time at water holes and stream crossings and saddles. And so we had that out there just sort of passively collecting all of this information all of the time. And then for our study in particular, we had, again, like another 25 or more cameras that we would be putting on kill sites and dens and beds, and we would we'd put those out and collect those up and move them around. We also had a network on specific dens that were just for this study that were, again, out and always passively collecting. And then we used these you're going to notice a variation in footage quality through the course of the film, because the trail cam footage is it's okay, but it's not cinema quality.
Sure.
And then you're going to see some cinema quality too. So we use Cognisys Systems cameras. Again, they are fantastic. And Colin was able to long lens some things too. So there's a kill site with an elk at a wallow and a family feeding on it. And you're going to see some footage of Colin snuck in and was able to long lens off of a ridge very nearby to these cats. So we had this mixed bag, because once we found something really good and we were working with Colin, we were putting out these really high-end cameras. That the organization I worked for, we had some of these, and then Colin has a lot of his own. And so we were able to deploy this better camera network to collect really high-quality footage to shoot in low light. And then we were able to use lights and things like that to get more cinematic quality footage. But really what it takes is a lot of cameras. And that helped us with the research, because the genetic data is always a little inconclusive. There's pieces of this puzzle, and the camera footage really fills it in. So Willow with her 6 kittens, I could only ever conclusively get 2 kittens genetically identified as being related to her, but she still had 4 more. And if we didn't have cameras out in the landscape collecting some of this footage, we would never have known that that family existed, because we would have only had the genetic data and not the trail cam footage that proved to us that this is what was happening. And then once that clued us in, we could follow them the next winter and we could see the track record. So we have the track record of our trackers in the field, writing these tracking notes every day about what they see and observe. We have the camera footage filling in gaps, and then we have the genetic information filling in gaps. And that creates as complete a picture as we were able to compile.
Yeah. Well, to me at least, some of the footage may not be as cinematically gorgeous as some of the stuff that Colin shot with an actual camera of that kind, but just the again, access and proximity to certain things and certain animals and comings and goings at night. And obviously, some of the kill stuff isn't for the faint of heart, but, that's just part of, studying and trying to learn and understand about nature and how things work and circle of life, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, so I think I heard or saw two different figures. Maybe I misunderstood. But was there 150 trail cameras, or was there more than that contributed to the film?
I think that's probably a pretty safe number. And then add into that some of these higher quality cameras as well. But yeah, somewhere in that ballpark of like probably around 150 or so.
Yeah.
So, no small thing to keep those all maintained and curate all of the cards coming off of that, because you get, so many magpies and so many wind triggers and lots that's just grass blowing in the breeze. And, and then out of that one card that fills up with all of those videos, you'll get something amazing. And so digging through all of that, Colin spent countless hours digging through all of that information to find and mine for those gems. And so it was really it was an absolute passion project for the both of us.
Yeah, no, that's really clear in the end result. I mean, you don't see something like this that's not the result of incredible passion. And like you described, it makes perfect sense that there was tremendous amount of time involved, and if you weren't willing to put in the time and have patience, you weren't going to be able to get the kind of results that you guys got.
Yeah, it was an absolute lesson in patience, for sure. And so many times, too, you set up a camera and you think you're going to get the most amazing stuff, and then something doesn't work, and, and you feel very deflated. So there's a lot of that, too. But yeah, the hope is to really shine a light on how amazing these elusive predators are, the lives that they live, and then to set that in the greater context of the world that they live in, because there's that fox subplot. There's a lot of other things with deer and elk and hunting sequences and all of that. And so just to kind of as best we can, portray their lives within the greater context of the world they inhabit.
Well, that might be the perfect point at which to leave this. So we've been speaking with Joshua Lisbon, again, prominently featured in the new documentary Willow, Diary of a Mountain Lion. That premieres tonight on the PBS series Nature. It's 8 p.m., I believe, regardless of what time zone you're in. And
it'll be 7 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Mountain Time.
Oh, okay. Well, glad we clarified that. I thought I saw something different, but that's good to know. So,
and, yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, but it's definitely tonight, and as hopefully our conversation made clear, it's quite an astonishing film, and Willow's quite an astonishing mountain lion. So, Joshua, thank you so much for making the time to join us today on Talking Animals. I really appreciated the film and really enjoyed talking to you as well.
Thank you very much. I love your thoughtful questions. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
In a moment, I'll speak with Miriam Parham of Florida Voices for Animals, who will fill us in on various aspects of Tampa Bay Veg Fest, which is just around the corner at this point. It happens Saturday, November 8th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Perry Harvey Senior Park. We'll hear more in a moment on Talking Animals on WNF from Miriam about this year's Veg Fest and the triumphant return. First, though, we're going to step into the Comedy Corner with a comic making his debut here on Talking Animals with a relevant piece. It's Miles Anderson with part of a piece called Mountain Lions in today's Comedy Corner on Talking Animals on WMNF.
The only real problem on Vancouver Island is the mountain lions. I don't know if you know this, but Vancouver Island has the densest population of mountain lions in the world. Yeah, I guess it's here. I guess there's a mountain lion here tonight. That's how dense the population is. They are in this comedy club right now. All the cougars, yes, I knew that was going to happen. Took a huge risk. But yes, we have the densest population of mountain lions in the world. I don't know how this happened. I guess they keep multiplying and they can't get on the ferry, so they're just piling up here. And it's actually such a problem that when I was a little kid, I had a conservation officer come to my school and educate the children about the murder cats that were lurking behind the playground. And I'll never forget what the conservation officer said. He sat down and he was like, you know, kids, you'll probably never see a mountain lion, but statistically, mountain lions have already seen you. Scariest thing I'd ever heard in my life. The fear of mountain lions has been burned into me so deeply, and it is irrational. I live in Vancouver now, in the city, and, I went down, I was walking down like a creepy alley the other day, and I heard some shuffling behind me, and my first thought was the mountain lions. Oh, my God. They finally found me. And I turned around slowly, and it was just some guy with a knife. Like, I was so relieved.
That was Miles Anderson in today's Comedy Corner with part of a piece that I'm calling Mountain Lions, taken from his album Miles Per Hour. Now it's time to talk with Miriam Parham of Florida Voices for Animals about the Tampa Bay Veg Fest coming up on Saturday, November 8th. Let's hear more about it by welcoming Miriam Parham back to Talking Animals on WNF. Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning, Duncan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us again on Talking Animals.
Appreciate it. We're so excited about this year's event. It's our 13th annual, and I think we're going to have a record crowd. We have a record number of food vendors. I'm so excited. I just could go on for a half hour here, but
all right. Well, just for some context, let's take a moment and briefly describe Florida Voices for Animals, since that's the organization that really produces Tampa Bay Veg Fest.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, we're an animal education group. Our mission is to educate people about animal abuse and exploitation, and we've been incorporated since 1989, and we have done many, many activities through our years, but Tampa Bay Veg Fest is one of our keynote events. But we work on fighting for legislation to help animals, including trying to help stop the bear hunt and all kinds of things that we've been successful in some and not others. But we continue to educate and work hard for the animals and just try to get people to change their lifestyle, which affects a lot of the animal suffering, so including eating more plant-based and avoiding things that will not only hurt animals but our planet and our health.
So that brings us in some ways to the signature event that we're here primarily to discuss, which is, again, Tampa Bay Veg Fest. So just philosophically, it's pretty clear from what you just said, but why does Florida Voice for Animals produce Veg Fest? I mean, it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of moving parts, but what is the mission and goal in producing it?
Well, that's a great question, because it is a lot of work, but, we're so passionate about trying to help extend this education to as many people as we can, and we want to help the local businesses. There's so many vegan businesses and many who've gone out of business too, but there are many other vendors who are not fully vegan, but on that day they will only serve plant-based food or items. We're all together in this celebration of how to be more cruelty-free and live healthy. And it's just our way of saying thank you and support, some of these businesses, but also the local ones too. Especially, we have like some of our regulars, House of Vegano, and we're going to have for the first time Pure Kitchen and doing cooking demos, and we're having featuring speakers from local and out of the area to bring in some amazing information to everybody here, like Tim Kaufman of Fat Man Rants. We've been trying to get him actually here for years and finally got him here last year because of the hurricane. We had to cancel and he was going to come. You've had some of our speakers every year, and recently Crystal Heath, one of the veterinarians. We're having the people working on the bear bear hunt lawsuit in a panel at the end of the day. We have just a way to really feature so many amazing people in the area. There's so many activists and so many things to do that are vegan and places to eat that we all need to support, work together. And even our yoga group this year is amazing. It's featuring yoga studios from all over, from Trinity, from St. Pete, Tampa, from all around this area here, just doing amazing things to help people feel better and be healthier. Amazing music this year. I mean, it's just tremendous. We just have some well-known bands, Copper Wing Band, who's in the area, the Fickle Souls, Smooth Jams, and new one, Joe Furkey. It's just a way to have fun and celebrate all things good. There's so much bad out there that today everybody in one day can just enjoy being cruelty-free and learning how to live better and support all these businesses.
Yeah. Well, that certainly sounds great. And again, we should say that this is taking place November 8th at Perry Harvey Senior Park from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, website, you can find out all more details of what Miriam and I are talking about is TampaBayVegFest.com. So let's say someone will be going and, it's Saturday, it's busy. They have maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. How should they try to spend their limited time?
Well, if you have limited time, I would say support the businesses who are there. We have really reached capacity in the food, and truly there's some amazing vendors there. I mean, we'd love for everybody to listen to all the speakers or watch the food demos, but that's impossible. But maybe pick one speaker that you really want to hear or one food demo, one activity, but just try to not only eat some great things, maybe even take home extra food for dinner and just really, really support these vendors. I believe there's going to be a record crowd. I believe it's going to be just a lot of fun, I think, and hopefully we'll have good weather. And I think it'd just be a day of joy and feel good and I would say, that 1 hour, make the most of it.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. And there's so many things you mentioned that can be done. And there's beyond that, there's a kids' fun zone. There's stuff for everybody to be happy and engaged. And again, this food samples booth where you can go and obviously try some food. Let's say you were thinking about, I want to go more vegan or I want to go full-on vegan, but I'm just not sure. And this is a great way to sample all kinds of things that you might find really delicious and say, wow, that's now we're talking. So,
yeah, it is, and I would love to thank all the sponsors. We have some amazing sponsors, but I do have to mention the City of Tampa is sponsoring for us the first time this year, and it's just really amazing how many other great sponsors we have, including WMNF and Talking Animals, and you guys who've always been supported through the years, and individuals who've also are helping in many ways, shapes, or forms, just by either exchanging ads, advertising, or just different things to help promote the event and help make it happen, because it's a lot of work and it's not cheap, and we just try to break even. We're all volunteers. Nobody is trying to make money in this event, but we want to be able to support this so we can do it again.
Okay, so Miriam, we're just sort of nearing the end of our time together, but when you talked about the volunteer effort, made me wonder, I don't know, maybe this close to the event, do you have all the volunteers you need, or are you still looking for any volunteer help?
We may be able to use one or two, but we cannot just have people show up because it gets a little chaotic. So
right.
They can go to the website and see if there's any positions left that they can be helpful in. That would be great. But sometimes having too many in one area, it's not helpful. But please look. We may still have some spots that would be very grateful to have somebody else help us in that. So just go to the website and go to activities or how to volunteer and see what's left.
Well, that sounds great. And again, that's TampaBayVegFest.com for the website. So, Miriam, we're super looking forward to it. And again, without belaboring this, because we already talked about this a few months ago, last year, the aftermath of the hurricane kind of knocked VegFest out of the, functioning. So it's back bigger than ever and brighter than ever. Everybody's even more excited than ever. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody on November 8th, Perry Harvey Senior Park from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for Tampa Bay VegFest. Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, we have just about reached the end of today's edition of Talking Animals on WMNF. Coming up, it's The Conversation, the great show hosted by Myra Nunez and Joe King Carter. After that, it's The Scoop, WNF's brief news recap. Then we shift back to music programming with Sam Vaughn, holding forth from 1 to 3, followed by Nancy C., hosting the Traffic Jam from 3 to 6 p.m. And it's Allie with Sound Safari and more great stuff here on 88.5 WMNF. We'll see you next Wednesday here at 11 a.m. on Talking Animals. Stay tuned for The Conversation on WMNF Tampa.